Ultra cheap crude oil could sink thousands of energy jobs, and Houston could suffer more than any other city. But local and state leaders are working to combat the impact of falling prices. Jason Miles is keeping tabs on exactly what they're doing.
Greater Houston is often called the energy capital of the world, and this oil and gas Goliath could fall the hardest thanks to plummeting prices.
And we are seeing a level of demand destruction and a level of oil industry downturn that in the past happened over a course of years, now happening over a course of days.
Ryan Sitton is one of 3 elected members of the Texas Railroad Commission, which regulates the state's oil and gas industry. Times are so tough, the commission talked about cutting production during a meeting this morning, something it hasn't done since 1973.
And I think we've all been up a lot of nights, or I have at least at my house for about a month, knowing that some of that was coming. And
oil prices dropped below $0 per barrel for the first time ever Monday, thanks to global activity and extremely decreased demand because of COVID-19. Prices rebounded a bit today, but remain more than $100 less per barrel compared to one point last year. The Railroad Commission decided to form a blue ribbon task force to help combat sinking oil prices, while officials up in Washington get to work as well.
Yesterday, I don't think any of us expected a 300% drop in the price of a barrel of oil.
Congresswoman Lizzie Fletcher's district includes West Houston's energy corridor. She filed a bill this morning that would allow the feds to buy $3 billion worth of crude oil, helping producers while replenishing the nation's strategic petroleum reserve.
Something that President Trump has said he would like to do, but the Department of Energy can't buy oil for the petroleum reserve unless Congress appropriates the money. So that's what we're working to do now, and I'm very optimistic.
Experts say major measures will need to happen to keep massive layoffs, furloughs, and even bankruptcies at bay. In Houston, Jason Miles, KHOU 11 News.
Another day in paradise. Thanks for tuning in. So it's crazy out here. We have a lot of things going on in the world, and it's crazy. It's getting crazier by the day. I think it's about to get crazier. So first off, we just had our president or idiot-in-chief today say that he's going to allow the Navy to shoot down any Navy vessels that harass any U.S. Navy ships in the Persian Gulf, which is basically their own waters. How is it? See, this is the talk right here that leads to World War III. So this is that World War III talk right here we're talking about. And now you're saying, oh, you're being alarmist, you're being a doom and gloom type guy. No, this is serious. You don't want to go to war in a time of absolute chaos in our economy that's about to unfold. I mean, we're in the middle of a huge health situation, and then you're telling pretty much the Navy it's okay to engage and shoot down and possibly engaging in a war with Iran. Like, why would you do that during this time? It's like, it's crazy. We're spending trillions of dollars monthly to keep the economy afloat, and now you're talking about potentially going to war indirectly by telling the Navy to shoot at ships and shoot down planes that belong to the Iranian army. This is the wrong guy to have in office. I thought for a while that, I was never a Trump fan, but obviously he said a few things that I did like, and one of the things that he said that I liked was reopening the economy, which is something we need to do responsibly, but I'll get into that later on. But most of everything this guy's done as far as leadership of this whole health situation, it's just been one bad situation after another. I mean, it's pretty clear that even Dr. Fauci's pretty much washed his hands with this guy, because Trump he's just incompetent. He's incompetent, and there's nothing you can say to this guy that's really going to make him agree with you, unless you're agreeing with what he's saying. I mean, the guy's nuts. He wants to be a dictator. He doesn't understand the rule of law. He doesn't understand foreign policy. The guy's nuts. But anyway, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about going to war with potentially Iran that could drag China into it. And in a situation where just yesterday, oil went negative. So the demand for oil versus supply is demand's negative. No one wants oil anymore. Oil at this point in the situation, no one wants it. There's no place to put this oil in right now at this point. And to mind you that our federal government has started buying oil from suppliers. So they're buying it right now because they don't want suppliers to shut down. So they're buying the oil from suppliers and they're putting this oil in the natural reserves for America, for our country. But the Fed is buying everything at this point. And it's a crazy situation. And of course, this health situation is still unfolding. They're talking about now opening up Atlanta. Now, I can think of a lot of other places cities that they might want to open up, but why would they want to open up Atlanta? To me, that just seems strange. Atlanta. Why Atlanta? Why not some small town, maybe like in Louisiana, or maybe a smallest like Birmingham, Alabama? I don't know. Just a smaller city. Why not somewhere in Idaho? Billings, Idaho, Billings, Montana, whatever. One of those places. Why not them? Why Atlanta? It just makes me think that it's kind of like a controlled experiment. They're wanting to see what's going to happen. They know that Atlanta has a lot of compromised people out there with underlying issues, diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular issues, HIV, etc. So it's almost like they're waiting to see what happens. Like let's do an experiment. Let's see how many people die. I don't know. It just seems kind of fishy to me. I mean, most people get this situation and they can walk off like nothing happened, but for some people, they get very sick, and some people it takes them out. So it is a situation, but it just seems really crazy. And I think next on the agenda is really, for the markets to crash back down and massive unemployment. We're going to see, I think this week, actually I haven't checked the numbers this week, the numbers for unemployment for the past week. Let's see. Because they're going sky high. This is nuts. So basically, the unemployment claims, they're skyrocketing. They're absolutely skyrocketing. 5 million more people filed jobless claims last week. So we don't have the numbers this week yet, which is, of course, the 22nd. But 5 million people last week unemployed. I mean, we're looking at 40 to 45% unemployment in this country. I mean, this is unheard of numbers. This is unheard of. I mean, where do you go from here at this point? Again, not to be doom and gloom, but look, I think that we should always have plans and then more contingency plans, because, whatever plans we have for this year, for 2020, that's out the window. I think at this point we need to have new plans and to figure out what you're going to do when plan A doesn't work. You got to have plan B and maybe even a plan C. Because this stuff is just unprecedented. No one knows when they're going to start hiring again. I mean, think about it. I mean, you're telling people who just are out of work, who's hiring at this point? Most companies, I would think they have hiring freezes. We haven't even been to the worst of the economic downturn yet, so they're going to start shedding more jobs each week. So it's like at this point, who's really hiring except for like essential businesses, grocery stores, and Walmart? Who else is hiring? Most companies are shedding jobs. If they're not shedding jobs, certainly they're not trying to bring on more people now. So, all this stuff is just adding to, I think, really, in my opinion, is just really the demise and the slow decay of America. This is the slow decay and unfolding of America. And this is going on, I guess, this is a worldwide situation, but this is hitting America really, really hard. More so than some other nations that, that are maybe developing nations or other Western nations or European nations. We're getting hit very hard. And I think this is probably going to be more painful. People are going to have to start moving back home with their parents. People are going to have to lose their homes. People are going to start losing, of course, their cars. You're going to have to burn through some savings. People are going to have to learn to get very resilient nowadays, because there's no telling how long this thing is going to last. Again, that's not to say that you can't weather the storm. You can weather the storm, and I think if you can position yourself the right way, you can come out of this situation potentially just as good, or not better, if you position yourself. And a lot of people right now, they're not even really aware or how to do that. And I think really one of the easiest things you can do is just start investing in physical gold, physical silver. That's the first thing you can do to really hedge against the inflation that's to come. I think that really we're going to have inflation. I mean, right now I think we're in a deflationary period, of course, but this is not going to last forever. I think eventually there's going to come a point when things come back online within the next 18 to 24 months, full speed. I think we're going to start to experience inflation. And that's when, if you're investing in these metals, you'll come out on top. I just think it's a very prudent thing to do right now. The housing economy, for the housing market, I think right now we're seeing, I think we just saw the last push. People sold their homes because of the very low interest rates. You saw that final push, people refinancing and people buying. But I think that's cooled off now. So I think that's going to be the next situation that's going to be affected. Is the housing market. The housing market for most cities across the country. And I was looking at a great article in a magazine, Kiplinger, and a lot of these markets, a lot of markets they're overbought as far as the housing market. And since the 2009 downturn, some of these markets in Atlanta and Las Vegas, Denver, I think it's Manhattan as well. There are a few other major markets. There's some in Florida as well, but they're overbought, which means that right now they have nowhere to go but down. Nowhere to go but down. And a lot of people they don't realize that. So what's going to happen is that they're going to get caught just like back in 2009. They're going to have a situation where they're going to be underwater with their mortgage. So you're going to have more foreclosures and more people losing homes, losing wealth. I mean, that's coming down the pike. I mean, we've seen this before, but I think this situation is going to have a little bit of a different twist than 09. This is going to be the big boy right here. All right, this is going to be the big boy. This is going to be the real downturn, in my opinion, of the century. And I think what we're looking at here is potentially a situation that, unfortunately, I hate to say it, if we're not careful, if they're not careful, because I don't control the federal government and the armed forces, but if they're not careful, we're going to find ourselves in a war with a country, and that can potentially lead to a chain of events that can lead to a world war. It's very easy to happen. It's very easy for these things to happen. And I know you're saying doom and gloom, and negativity. I'm just being realistic. The geopolitics out here at play with going to war with countries like Iran or China or Russia, or declaring war on North Korea or anything crazy like that, that's going to have implications of worldwide implications. There's no such thing as just declaring war like we did with Iraq. Oh, we'll just declare war with Iraq and we're just going to bomb you and that's it. You can't do that with Iran. They're allied with Russia. Russia is somewhat allied to China. You're going to drag countries in there, and then there are other countries that are allied to us. You're going to drag us into a situation. And I think that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at tensions rising, nations starting to isolate themselves from one another. We're kind of gearing ourselves up for like another conflict. Unfortunately, that's what I'm seeing. And there's just a lot of things going on. But I mean, like I said, I think there's always a way for you to come out of this situation. We have all this time on our hands nowadays, and you should be reading, self-study, taking online courses, starting that project up, starting that new business plan up for that business, so you can get it implemented when the dust settles from all this nonsense, because it will settle eventually. But it's time to get started on that, so that way you'll be ahead of the curve. There are other investment opportunities, like I said. There's silver, there's gold, the things you can get involved with. That at the end of this, you'll be in a better position, at least in certain parts of your portfolio, or depends on how exposed you were, but you'll be better off if you'd invested in certain items such as metals. And I think really the big thing with this I guess the main takeaway that I'm seeing again from this fallout is, I think, again, since 9/11, we've seen a lot of civil liberties being stripped away from us. After 9/11, they had the Patriot Act. They had more surveillance on America. They came up with Homeland Security, and I think we're going to come up with more and more measures and laws in place that take away the liberties of Americans, which makes America more or less an authoritarian regime. Certain, kind of like China. That's where we're headed to, because every major event that happens in this country, if you've been tracking this stuff, they find ways to take away our civil liberties, and that's what's taking place right now. So there are laws being written right now, one specifically that deals with your cell phone. Now it's tracking your movement to say, they want to make sure that you're not coming in contact with other people who have the illness. But that's not going to go away after this situation clears up. Whenever it clears up, that's not going to go away. That's going to stay in place. So of course they've already been tracking you, but they're just doing more of it. So this is what we're looking forward to in this whole situation. Again, we can make it out. You just have to plan for the best, but prepare as well, because we don't know what's going on. We live in strange times, but we're gonna be all right. We're gonna be all right. Anyways, thanks for listening.